Hello, everyone. I'm Laurel Staples. So, what happens now that the government shutdown is underway? Reporter Robert Cheney with our media partner, the Montana Free Press, joins me today to talk about his latest article on this and what could happen next. Robert, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Happy to be here.
So, let's dive into the first question. First, what's next for federal workers with the shutdown underway?
So the shutdown contingency plans for most federal agencies gave them half a day to wrap up their non-essential activities, and if they were not exempted and ordered to stay on unpaid, to go home. So they have been spending, I am guessing, the first half of today closing up their offices, putting up closed signs, locking doors on pretty much any facility that, especially for out here in the Montana Rocky Mountain area, things like national parks, any facility that would be closed at the end of a usual business day is going to be closed for the duration of the shutdown. So they're turning all those things off, shutting those things down, locking them up, and then going home.
So, a lot of questions surrounding whether the employees will be furloughed or possibly fired. So, what did you find in your research?
The shutdown will put anybody who's not an essential worker on furlough until the end of the thing. But this time, last week, Office of Management, sorry, this time the Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought put out a notice to all federal agencies last week, advising them to consider permanently firing employees who were not considered essential or aligned with Trump administration priorities. This morning, he reiterated that to Republicans in Congress in a meeting earlier today, where he said within the next couple of days he would have lists of the people who or the programs that did not meet those priorities and to plan on firing those people. Yesterday afternoon, I believe some of the federal employee unions have already filed suit saying that's illegal to fire people during a federal budget shutdown. So exactly how fast that may play out is going to be in doubt, but it could involve thousands of workers who would ordinarily be back to work after a shutdown ends.
What do you think the outcome will be here?
There's a lot of debate whether this is a part of a big plan to really change the size of the federal estate and the federal government, or if this is just a negotiating tactic to put pressure on the Democratic side and say, this is how much pain you're in for if you don't accept the continuing resolution that the Republicans put forward. But before the shutdown was coming together, many federal agencies, including the Department of Interior, which runs the national parks, and the USDA, which runs the Forest Service, had put out notices that they planned significant reductions in their workforces. Again, talking, thousands of workers, either by moving, in the case of the Forest Service and the USDA, moving an awful lot of their Washington, D.C. area offices to regional hubs and expecting to lose thousands of people in the process of that. Or in Interior's case, they've already gone through significant downsizing. The National Park Service a year ago had 21, almost 22,000 people. Today it has 14,500 that have been let go since January. And they have furloughed an estimated 9,200 of those. So there's virtually nobody in the national parks right now, and anybody who is in there is not getting a paycheck.
All right. Well, the list is really long here. What are some of the other changes we need to prepare for during the shutdown?
There's, obviously, if you're a federal worker, hopefully you've had enough warning that you can get some finances in order. The last time this happened in 2018, 2019 was right over the Christmas, New Year's holiday, and that lasted 35 days. So people, it's an awful burden on a family if you're trying to live without a paycheck for a month or more. There were a lot of cases where, people were helping out with loan extensions from banks and just, taking care of your neighbor. On the general public side, a lot of things that are on autopilot, like Social Security payments, are going to keep coming. The mail is going to keep coming. Um, and then there are different priority levels within the government itself. So I told you some of the numbers of, the Forest Service and the National Park Service getting furloughed. The Veterans Administration is getting about 3% of its people told to go home. So it's really staying fully staffed. Um, a lot of the Bureau of Land Management, for example, is only going to let go 2,400 of its 9,200 people. So it really varies from agency to agency, and I guess that I suppose has to do with their alignment with the Trump priorities as to how much of an impact they're going to feel in front of the public.
Well, your article dives into the history of shutdown. So how does this one compare so far? I know you touched a little bit on this, but what else?
We've had 21 shutdowns since 1976, and they varied from there was one that was actually almost an accidental shutdown because so many members of Congress were off doing some fundraising thing that they didn't have enough to have a quorum on the day the budget ran out, to the last one in 2018, 2019 that went for a month and a week. Most of them on average have lasted about a week. Um, so how long this one is going to go, has a lot to do with, is this a real fight over dollars and cents, or is it a fight over ideology and my priorities versus your priorities? What I'm seeing from the national news coverage is this is going to be way more of an ideological fight. And that means it's a lot harder to negotiate. You can't just come up with a dollar number to say, okay, let's split the difference. It's sort of my way or the highway, and who can handle the pain the longest until the other side folds.
All right. So in all of your research and putting this article together, your top concerns here moving forward.
So for people out here in the Rocky Mountain West, public land management agencies are kind of the biggest federal presence in anybody's life. The Forest Service, the Park Service, the BLM, various USDA things. The Park Service is in a very tricky position because the contingency rules say leave the roads and trails open. So people are driving into Glacier Park, people are driving into Yellowstone Park, but there aren't any rangers around. And if you've been to Yellowstone, you know how many tourists wander in there and decide to go pet the buffalo or see how hot that steamy water pool really is, or if you can, do something else foolish in it. And the safety personnel, the advisory personnel aren't going to be there. There is contingency plans for picking up trash and cleaning up toilets, which was a disaster the last time in 2018. And remember, it was a disaster in 2018 in the middle of winter when, Glacier Park is pretty much buttoned up solid and Yellowstone Park has only one road in, and we still managed to trash the place. This time we're in the shoulder season, so a whole lot of businesses are going to, had plans to make their last couple of weeks of good tourist money. That's really going to be affected. I talked to a bunch of hotel and tour guide, wildlife watching leaders and things like that, and they say even though we can still drive in, people are just canceling like falling leaves. They're just assuming that everything is shut down, and so they ask for their refund or they change their plans and don't come. And that means a whole lot of local businesses go into the winter with a red bottom line.
Also, you have to think about the rescues, people entering the parks during this time, and if they're injured or something happens, there's probably rescue and safety, like you mentioned, a big issue there.
That's a big issue. The law enforcement is one of the exempted positions for pretty much all of the federal government. So health and safety is still going to be paid attention to. But as anybody out here in the Rocky Mountain West knows, you don't take Mother Nature for granted when you go out to play. And if you don't have nearly as much park staff, that means buildings aren't open. You can't get out of bad weather. You can't get a telephone or a radio to work because there's nobody at the visitor center anymore. You're really taking a risk by going out and assuming that just because the entrance is free, you can do what you want. So yeah, it's a not a good time to take your chances on doing that big adventure that you didn't think the Rangers would let you do.
Any idea on how long that this government shutdown could last?
No, that's a crystal ball gaze that I've been watching the national coverage, and it does not look like there is an easy solution for either side to back down gracefully or to crush the opponent and win quickly.
Okay. What could the long-term impacts be here?
We're looking at a real challenging fall. Like I said, for small businesses, park community businesses, which are a big economic contributor to the Rocky Mountain West out here, they're losing their shoulder season. They're losing an awful lot of tourist business. For the federal government, one of the things that we don't really notice in the general population is how much data they collect. Business data, survey data, census data, education data, wildlife data, water quality data, stream flows for fishermen. All those things are mostly done by the federal government. And they're just done in the background all the time. Somebody is out there going and checking the meter and checking the weather and checking the wildlife cameras and whatnot. All of that is either hopefully on autopilot or it goes dark for a while. And when you're talking about business trends, for example, you're talking about labor statistics. If you put a gap in those things, then all of a sudden, all of your trends have an asterisk next to them, and you no longer have really good predictive power about whether your economy is going up or down, whether your cost of living is in a sustainable or a troublesome lever. And that translates into things like mortgage rates. That translates into your ability to finance a house or a car. If you don't have that good data coming in, and there's not a good private source to replace it with. So the federal government really needs to kind of be routinely chugging away at these little background chores for an awful lot of American life to keep functioning right.
What about our nation's security? I know that this could impact everything from border security to airports to, I know active military members are still required to report to duty, but they won't get paid.
So they're all, like I said, law enforcement, public safety folks are generally exempted from the furloughs, but they are not getting paid. I talked to some airport directors in Montana. All of their TSA folks and all of their flight FAA controllers are showing up for work. The planes are going to fly. The X-ray machines are going to go. But you might want to give those people some grace because they're working for free and they have no idea when and how long that's going to last.
All right. Well, in beginning to wrap up, any other big takeaways that you'd like to share?
This, I think, is going to become a very political issue. A lot of the federal government websites have a big banner on the top right now that says, due to the radical Democrat left, the government is shut down. That I think would ordinarily violate the Hatch Act, that government agencies are not supposed to be making political comments. But, you know, we're in different times. There's going to be an awful lot of pressure on Congress members in the House and Senate to either cave in or hold the line. And again, it's not a matter of do we want to increase spending by 10% or decrease spending by 20% or something. It's way more a matter of should the government continue doing all the things that we have traditionally paid for, or do we want to radically reimagine how big it ought to be or how much smaller it ought to be in this case, And those are going to be very hard negotiating points.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Robert. A lot of good information coming in, and we'll have to wait and see what happens moving forward. And I know we can read your article at a number of different locations, including the mountainjournal.org, Montana Free Press, their homepage, and also nbcmontana.com. Thanks again, Robert.
Thank you.